From the studios of KENW on the campus of Eastern New Mexico University, it's You Should Know, featuring the people and events of Eastern New Mexico and West Texas.
Welcome to You Should Know. I'm your host, Evelyn Ledbetter, and today I have one of our guests that have been with us previously, Mike Terry, and it's a pleasure to have you back. The other two interviews that we have done that are on our YouTube channel that can be watched are great information about the early part of beekeeping, but this is a later one. So tell me a little bit about you, Mike, before we get started.
Thank you for letting me come back. I appreciate the opportunity to get to share some information. I was raised in Portales, Roosevelt County, and became an educator, taught fourth grade for several years, and then an administrator. And then for a hobby, I picked up beekeeping, and that's what brings us here today. So.
And then you dabble in real estate on the side of that.
I do. I work with Buena Vista Realty down there with Jack Merrick and his family. So after retiring from education, I needed something a little bit different, and they welcomed me in, and I'm happy to be there.
Kind of hard to throw the brakes on when you've worked your whole life and all of a sudden you don't have a place to be at 7 o'clock in the morning.
That's true. That's true. So, but it's been a blessing for me to be able to do that, and it gets me the opportunity to help a lot of people that I've been around and seen and got to know over the years. So.
Well, and I know you had told me previously that this was something you had planned to. Your dad had interest and had a plan to work with him, and
correct. H.R. Terry was a farmer in this area, and he had farmed for many years. And I think maybe in his youth he had been around bees a little bit. And as he got ready to start retiring, he thought, well, this might be a good hobby to get into. He didn't get the opportunity to, but I kind of picked it up as a sideline and have been doing it for about 15 years now.
Well, so. I think you may be creating a beekeeper in me. These little guys just fascinate me.
Oh, the more you learn, it just amazes you, you know. So.
It does. And you were so gracious, you invited myself and Josh, one of our production assistants. He came out and got a lot of footage, so some different things in the educational part. But this was on the harvesting of the honey.
Correct,
and,
yes.
And inspecting the hives.
Correct.
So I'll just let you kind of walk through what we did that day and, and the purposes behind it.
Well, everybody thinks that you just set a box out there and then you open up the switch and then you get the honey, you know, or open up a valve and get the honey. And there's a lot more to that. You do have to inspect your bees frequently. And we try to do it every 2 weeks. You know, some people do it every week just because they enjoy it. Some skip a week and then go every 2. But you try to get into them frequently to make sure that there's no pest and that there's everything is there. We talked about the queen being the center point and the two different philosophies, one saying that she makes all of the decisions and the other being that she is kind of the slave of that. So it depends upon what you want, but the queen is necessary for the survival of that hive. And so anytime you do an inspection, it's not necessarily that you see her each time, but if you see her, it is always kind of fascinating. But what you want to do is see signs that she has been there. And so that's what, when y'all were there, we had the opportunity to take some frames out. I think we saw a queen or two that day, but also to be able to see the brood. You'll have the different stages of brood and the larva and the eggs. And when you see a queen, even if you don't see the queen, but you see the eggs, which looks like a little bitty tiny white piece of rice, very small, then you know she's been there within 3 days. And then as it begins to develop into a larva and then to a pupa and then gets covered over. So after about 21 days, you have a whole new generation of bees there. So.
And of those hives, there's about 10 trays, right? And this is one of the trays that you have here on display.
Correct.
So 10 in a box, and the box is considered a hive.
Well, that's true. A hive can be more than, you can stack 2 to 3 boxes up on top depending upon the number of bees and the activity that they're doing. You want to make for sure that they always have room. As you start to analyze the hive and you pull these frames out, when they get about 8 frames full within a box, then you want to set another box up on top. So that way that there's always room for them to grow. If they feel like that they're getting too crowded, then they will create a swarm, and that is when half of the bees will leave and go to another area looking for a new hive. So,
When you started, did you buy your bees, or did you find a hive somewhere that you were able to gather up?
when I got started, the only place that I could find that was selling bees in our local area was a place in Roswell, and it was a farm store, and they ordered in packages of bees. And you could get 2 to 3 pounds of bees, and they would just come. It looked like a bread box. Was screened, though, about the size of a bread box, and it was screened. But they didn't have any wax. They didn't have any frames, nothing. They did come with a queen, but you would put them into a box, and if you had wax, well, then that gave them more of an urge to stay. But if not, which as a new beekeeper, I didn't have it, they did okay, but they weren't really that interested. If they felt like they could find a better home, sometimes they just left. And you'd sit there and think, well, I spent about $180 to $200 for 3 pounds of bees, and now they're gone, you know.
Oh.
So then I changed and started buying from a gentleman in Edgewood, and he is a beekeeper, and he will sell what they call a nucleus, or a nuke, N-U-C, and that will consist of 5 frames of bees, pollen, and honey. But now that they are kind of committed, that queen is used to laying in that area, and then you take those 5 frames and put them into a larger 10-frame box, and now they're more apt to stay.
Okay. Well, and I know on that day, we started out just doing an inspection just to see what was going on, if the queen was there.
Correct.
How often normally do you check your boxes to make sure that they're healthy and nothing's going on inside of there?
Well, you always try to check it every 2 weeks, 3 weeks at max, just to make for sure. There have been times when I go out and check, and then the bees are just gone for whatever reason. So people will say, how many hives do you have? Well, I never know till I check, because as I checked about 2 weeks ago, I had 2 hives that had just vanished. So, you know, I lost 2, and you never know why. Sometimes it can be parasites. Sometimes they get into spray, depending upon what it is. And so you never know. But typically, if you can get in every 2 weeks, just make for sure that your hive, their bee numbers inside that box is increasing, and that they are producing the honey that they need, because the number one is for them to be self-sufficient through the winter, and you always want to leave enough for that.
I knew that on the trays we checked to find like the pupae, is that what you would say?
Correct.
The egg, and then if you had those, even though if you didn't see that, the queen, you knew that she was laying eggs.
She was there, because as the queen lays those eggs, any egg that is less than 3 days old, they can create a new queen from by using royal jelly and everything. So even if the queen gets lost or gets pinched when you're doing an inspection, and you always try to be very careful not to pinch her, but if the bees realize they need that new queen, as long as that egg is 3 days or less, they can create their own queen. If you see that there are no eggs and everything is in the larva and pupa stage, that hive is in trouble if there is not a queen, because they're unable to build their own queen.
Because they're not, okay.
Correct.
And when we got started, this is actually the suit that I put on, correct? And this is pretty fun. I thought it would be super warm, but it's layered.
It is layered, and not all of them are this way. A lot of the times they are just like a cloth overall, and made out of cotton or some other fiber, and they get very hot, because typically when you're working with your bees, it's during the summer and spring months when it's hot outside. So the layered approach is the best suit, so that way it kind of breathes with you a little bit.
And I didn't have on that day, but actually you had said that if you had a cap on, it holds that screen out.
Then that bill kind of pushes that away, and it doesn't kind of push up against your face as you're moving around.
So that a bee, if she gets on there, or he doesn't have a party on your face.
Yeah, if one of the bees gets up there, they can sting through that mesh. So by having that cap on your bill, or your bill on your cap, that pushes that away just a little bit, where you're less apt to get
And
stung.
I didn't know if that would bother me or not, but put latex gloves on, and you literally started having me pull up the trays.
Right.
And look, and I thought, okay, this will be the moment to know whether this is something that I would ever actually do or not.
But it was interesting, though, wasn't it?
It was very much, and it didn't bother me, and it was just so fun to get in there. And then you use the smoker a little bit, right?
Right.
And talk a little bit about that?
The smoker, and especially when I go around to the schools and I do the demonstrations, everybody is taught that it puts the bees to sleep. It doesn't put the bees to sleep. All it does is kind of redirects them a little bit. If we were having a fire within our home, we would want to protect the things that were the most valuable to us. To a bee, that is the honey. They're unable to take their eggs and brood with them, so they're getting ready to evacuate. They're going to take honey to their new home. So while they are digesting that honey, basically packing it up, getting ready to travel, then that takes their attention away from me. So they think a fire's coming because of the smoke. They're consuming honey, getting ready to travel. I get in, do what I need to do my inspection, get out. The smoke dissipates, and they go, well, we don't need to leave now, and they go back to their business. So.
But you did that. I don't think you had a bee suit on at all that day. I think you put the gloves on.
I did have, I can't remember, I think I had on the veil. Okay. I think I had on a veil. But after you kind of get used to it, you don't worry too much about it. I've done a lot of things I probably shouldn't have done, but anytime that I have a visitor out, I make sure that I have them covered from head to toe, because you don't want your first experience to be getting stung, because then you don't want any bees at that point. So.
Sure. And I know you told me like the safe spot was if you got one inside of the suit was to get in the pickup and then open up and get that bee out.
Correct.
And
yes, I always try to encourage everybody and tell them that if they are surrounded by bees or whatever, and there is always that possibility, but if you get into the vehicle, turn the air conditioner just as cold as it'll go. The bees do not like the cold weather, so what they do is they get off of you and they'll go to the windows where it's warmer, and then they'll either stay on the window, or you can crack the window about an inch and then let them get out, and that's kind of a safety zone for you. If there's no vehicle around, you want to get into a home or whatever, you just keep going through different rooms and going through there. So.
And so when you pulled the trays out, what was it that determined that you decided there was enough honey for us to go ahead and do a harvest?
Well, basically what you want, when you're looking at the frames, the cappings, and I kind of refer to it like a pixie stick, but each one of those cells will get covered over or with wax. Mm-hmm. And when they get covered over with wax, well, then that allows then you know that the bees, because the bees they're amazing. They know what they need to do. So that moisture content must be between 16–18%. You don't want it to be above 18%. When they cap over the end of that cell, they know that the moisture content is correct. If it gets over 18%, then it can turn into, it will begin to ferment, and it will make a mead or an alcoholic beverage. And so you always want to make for sure that you shoot for around 16%. But if like 2/3 of that, 2/3, 3/4 of that frame is capped, then you know that more than likely on the average that other is as well on the right percentage of the moisture. They just haven't got around to it. So you can go ahead and harvest that frame.
So literally it turns into an alcohol, so they can kind of get a little of a buzz.
They can. They do talk about that when you go to feeding the alcohol back, if it's in the mead form, that it can get the bees a little bit loopy. I've not ever had to. I always make sure I get the moisture content right before I pull it. So.
And a lot of it, there was places where in the middle they had a lot of it capped, and then do they normally kind of put the larva in a certain area and then the honey around it, or how do they do that?
They do, because typically they keep the warmth of the hive at around 90–92 degrees. So no matter what the weather is, whether it's winter or summer or whatever. So what they will do is they'll keep to the center is where they're taking care of their babies, their brood, and their eggs. And then towards the outside is where they will put their honey. So when you start to do an inspection, you'll typically find that the outside 2 frames on each side are honey, and then they will do it. But one of the things I think that we noticed when we did the inspection the other day is I kind of refer to it as a rainbow, but you will have the brood towards the middle, and then the outer edge of it all the way around will be honey. And what they do is they do that as kind of a convenience, because then there is honey there for them to feed and to be able to nourish each other. And so that's always a good sign, because then that you know that there are. But ever so often you'll open up and pull up one of those frames, and it'll be just side to side brood, and you know that that queen is laying a lot of eggs, and you're fixing to increase your bee population.
It's going to grow. And so when you decided that there was enough honey, you had said that when you first started, you actually did the spin on the honey, and some people may not know what that is.
Yeah, it's like a large cylinder, and you can do it by hand or do it by electrical. The spinner that I used was electric. I just bought it off of another beekeeper that was getting out of the bee business, but I had done it by hand. And basically what you do is you take one of those frames and set it up on the end, and then you put it in this cylinder, and then you spin it, and it just throws out the honey to the outside wall of that cylinder, and then it drains down into the valve down at the bottom. And so you spin it out, and then when it drains out, then it goes down into your container.
And what was the word that you used? We scraped the covering off a little
Correct.
bit?
Yeah. Some will use knives, others will use different things. This one kind of looks like a fork, and you can see when it's scraped down through there, it opens up the ends, which is same as cutting the end of that pixie stick off, but it opens up that end where that honey can come out, and then it's thrown against the outside wall of that cylinder. But that's, if not, then they've got it packaged up. No matter how fast you spin it, you're not going to get it out. But you want to just scrape just the tip of it, just enough that you can get it out, so that they're not having to rebuild all of that comb again.
Well, and you also tested the moisture.
Correct.
If it had been too high, what would you have done? Just put them back in the...
Yeah, if it's too high, you can go ahead and harvest it, and you can put it into a small room, such as a closet or maybe a bathroom. Bathroom's not the best if you're using it, but a small because of the moisture content in the air. But you put it into like a closet and get a dehumidifier and kind of get something to blow some air bubbles in there to circulate that honey up, and it will withdraw out some of that moisture, and then until you get it down to the right. So there are ways around it. The best way is to let nature take care of itself. So.
Well, it was interesting. It was kind of like a centrifuge or an old-time washing machine. I guess is kind of what it looked like. And when it was not balanced, it really got to thumping.
It does. It does. That's one thing about this electrical one. You're doing more frames at a time. You're doing 4 versus the 2. And when it does get a little bit off of the center of balance with it, it does get it. And since then we've done that. I bought some spring legs that are supposed to go on the bottom, which are supposed to help that, but I don't have any pictures of it yet. But in theory, it's supposed to work. So.
Well, and then talk about the filtering that you set up on it.
One of the things about natural honey, and the best way to get local honey is to find a local beekeeper. Right now, this was not a good year for beekeeping. I didn't get as much harvested as I had hoped for. Others in the area maybe have done better, but we try not to filter. There's a difference between filtering and screening. Filter is a lot finer of a mesh, and when you're doing it, you're removing sometimes the pollen, sometimes the better benefits of it. And typically when they filter, they will also heat it, and because they want these particles to be as fluid as they can to get through the filter. And so that's what you buy sometimes at the stores is stuff that's been heated and been filtered. I don't filter, I screen, but I screen it a lot of times I will screen it 2 times because I want to make for sure that there are no bee parts, and sometimes a bee gets into there and you get a leg or something and people, but also the wax, you want to keep out anything that's through there. So I screen it very well. I want to provide a product for people that when they open it up, they know that it's 100% honey, and they don't have to worry about other things being in it. So.
Well, and you had said that when you buy honey off of a grocery store shelf, typically it doesn't crystallize, so you know it's been heated.
Correct.
And that does away with a lot of the medicinal values
right.
when it's heated up above a certain point.
Right. So that's always something to keep in mind, knowing that honey, most of your local honey will crystallize, and what they recommend is just heating up a pan of water, then taking the pan off of the stove, putting the honey inside of that water, letting it, then warming up the water again and doing it again. And everybody always asks me about microwaving it. Can we put it in the microwave? You can, but if it gets too hot or whatever, then you start to deteriorate the honey a little bit. And so it's not encouraged, but we've all probably done it when we're getting ready for a sopapilla or whatever that our food is of choice, and so it happens at times, but it's best not to.
I'm kind of funny. I actually like the taste of the crystallized honey, or maybe it's the texture or whatever, but I do like that.
Yeah, what my favorite is creamed honey. And creamed, it is not it is crystallized, but the crystals are such small that you don't really feel that texture in your mouth, and so it's more like a butter spread than it is a honey, but it's just more creamy, and I like that. So.
Well, and you, how many miles is it within a hive to be considered local honey?
Well, they claim they want it to be within 15 miles, and I see people advertising, and if you along the roadside stands and stuff, they'll say local honey, and you ask them where it's from, and they say, well, Arizona or someplace like that. Well, it is local to that area, and I'm not saying that it has been in any way an inferior honey, but it's not local if you're trying to help yourself. If you're looking for a good honey, it might be an excellent choice. But if you're looking for something to help you with your allergies, you really want it to be within 15 miles because that's where the plants are that are affecting your allergies.
Okay. And then something else that happened, Josh had a cut on his finger, and you actually got stung that day.
Yes, I did.
and I had never heard of this. You said just put honey on it.
Honey on it, yeah. That's about as good as a pain. It'll help to reduce the swelling on it and everything. And as far as medicinal values, the honey is good. The propolis, which we didn't get into a lot on that day, but which is a bee glue, and they use to glue the things together and to seal up holes. That is used for a lot of medicine and an antibiotic in hospitals and stuff, and they mix it in with alcohol, and it's just amazing the things that you get out of one hive. So.
We're winding down on time, so I know that you have to keep enough honey, and I'm sure you learn this as time goes by, of how much honey to leave in the hive for them to make it through the winter. You said this year it's not going to be a good harvest.
It's not going to be in my area. The places that I had, it seemed like that there was a lot of flowers, but a large bee population within those boxes have used up a lot of that honey, and so to get through the winter, what we're going to do is be feeding them some sugar water. Now, the minute you feed sugar water, you no longer harvest the honey. All you're doing is trying to provide them with a source of food to get through the winter, so that way you don't have to buy new bees, and then you don't harvest that honey, but you let them use it as a food source. And it's just kind of an alternative. It's not, I had a guy tell me one time, it's kind of like giving your kid a Snickers bar. It's not the most healthiest thing, but at least he won't starve to death, Well,
so. And you lose all the benefits because it doesn't have pollen in it.
That is correct.
But it does help keep your hive alive.
Correct.
And you said you're buying, you'll start buying what, 50 pounds of sugar?
Oh, right, yes.
Really, like every couple of days?
Yeah, because you have to get it done during the warm month, because during the cold, they're not coming out. So you try to get it done during the warm months.
So that they're building the honey out of that.
Correct.
Is that as good for the bee?
No, it's not.
It probably not, because it doesn't have the benefits for them
correct,
either.
Yeah, and it's more of a granular type deal, and it's not as good for them. So.
Okay. Well, so if someone wants to get into this, we only have a couple of minutes, but just find a mentor is probably one of the best ways.
That's absolutely the best way, is to find somebody.
Or watch these interviews.
Absolutely. I've sent them out a couple of times when people say, I'm interested in bees, and I send them these because you've done an excellent job of asking the questions, and we've covered a lot of material through here. So.
Well, it's really great. We have students that work here on these shows at KENW, and so that's always fun. They're learning a trade as well as the information. So when this is out on YouTube later, people can watch these and go through it.
Right.
Tell me one last question. What is absolutely your favorite way of consuming honey?
Oh, sopapilla.
Is that yours?
I love to go into a Mexican food restaurant and then have the sopapilla with hot sopapilla and the honey. That's my number one go-to right there. So.
You know that I'm a hot tea drinker in the winter, and I love that, but I love just peanut butter and honey.
Oh,
that was something my mom would let us have. It was healthy,
right? And
just stir that together, and we ate a lot of that as an after-school snack. But yeah, a good product.
Yes, absolutely.
So, tell me this: we've talked about swarms before, but if people find that, a number to call.
575-760-5291. And if I'm unable to come, there are other beekeepers in the area, and I'll make sure and get them in contact with them.
Or they can contact you at Buena Vista
Buena Vista Realty,
as well,
yeah.
and you'll come, and that gives you
Adds to my bee population.
It adds to your bees and helps them as well.
That's true.
Mike, this has been a pleasure. I've enjoyed every single one of these.
Thank you so much for having me.
I learned a ton, so
Yeah.
thank you. And to all of you watching, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time. Cheers.